The gavel's sharp crack was a period on a sentence Julian Thorne never wanted to read. It echoed in the hushed courtroom, a sterile, hollow sound that swallowed pride and left only dust. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed a cold, merciless tune, reflecting off the polished marble floors. Julian stood perfectly still, his suit jacket a dark shield against the blinding glare. He felt the kind of numbness that comes after the first, worst cut. You've already bled out, so all that's left is a quiet. Across the aisle, Serafina Vance sat as if on a throne, her silk dress rustling faintly. A smile, thin and precise as a scalpel, touched the corner of her lips. Her lawyer pushed a stack of papers toward her, the words on the final, devastating tally. Julian had built Orion Dynamics from the ground up, a decade of sleepless nights, shrewd deals, and relentless innovation. Now, it was just an itemized list. The judge's voice droned on, a robotic recitation of his life's work being dismantled. Controlling interest in Orion Dynamics, all subsidiary holdings, primary residences in Greystone Heights and Whispering Pines, liquid accounts totaling a significant figure. The list seemed to go on forever, a relentless hammering of loss. Julian felt a flicker of heat behind his eyes, but he held it back. Across the table, his 10-year-old daughter, Ilara, sat with her chin tucked into her sweater collar, her small hand clutching his. He felt her tremor and squeeze her fingers gently. He wouldn't show her or anyone the devastation he felt. Not here. Not now. Then came the final, dismissive line, delivered with a detached efficiency that was more lethal than any accusation. With the exception of the secondary property on Blackwood Ridge. A ripple of low laughter spread to the back rows. The haunted house, someone snickered. Another muttered. A crumbling relic. Serafina didn't even look up. She simply flicked a strand of her blonde hair back from her face, as if the words ruins and relic were beneath her dignity. To her, it was a final, mocking act of charity. She was leaving him with a worthless, decaying shell of a home, a final insult to seal his humiliation. Julian closed his eyes for a brief moment, letting the laughter wash over him. He breathed in, slow and deliberate, and he didn't break. This was the moment she thought she'd broken him. She was wrong. Outside, the city wind sliced through his suit, rustling the dead leaves and the planters along the sidewalk. Ilara's breath created small puffs of white in the cold air. Julian knelt and looked his daughter in the eye. "We're okay," he said, his voice a low, steady rumble. It was not a lie. It was a promise he intended to keep that on the curb. Two reporters in cheap suits were trading notes. She took everything, one said, left him with that dead house. The other shrugged, a cynical smirk on his face. That's all he deserves. Julian paid them no mind. He turned his gaze past the towering skyscrapers into a distant, unseen hill. Blackwood Ridge, a place everyone had written off as a lost cause. He let the thought settle in his mind, a heavy, unshakable stone. The mansion was his hidden fortress, his insurance policy. The place Serafina had never bothered to visit because it was too old, too dusty, too beneath her. He flagged a cab with 2 fingers, a gesture of controlled intent. The cab driver gave the crumbling mansion on the hill a long, skeptical look. "You really staying here, man?" he asked. Julian just nodded. The air at Blackwood Ridge smelled of wet earth and ancient wood rot, a scent that for most would mean decay. But to Julian, it meant solitude and, most importantly, security. The gravel drive was a mess of weeds, the iron gate groaning like forgotten ghost as he pushed it open. Ilara wrinkled her nose. "Dad, it's kind of creepy." Julian smiled faintly. "That's what makes it perfect," he replied. Inside, the mansion was a skeleton of a bygone era. Strips of wallpaper curled away from the walls like old parchment, revealing a chalky plaster the color of old bone. The floorboards groaned with every step. Somewhere in the vast house, a loose window pane rattled softly in the wind, a mournful sound. What Ilara didn't know, what no one knew, was that 10 years earlier, Julian had grown wary of the fleeting nature of wealth. He had foreseen a day when he might need a sanctuary. So he hired a crew under a fake name, paying them in cash to construct a wine cellar expansion in the basement. He had overseen every detail himself. Steel-reinforced walls, A triple lock vault door, climate control, silent alarms not connected to any network. Over the years, he had filled the vault meticulously, gold bars stacked like bricks of condensed sunlight, cash wrapped in neat plastic bundles, velvet boxes lined up like silent soldiers, each cradling rare, light-fracturing diamonds and antique jewelry. He led Alara down a narrow hallway to a door that looked like nothing more than a broom closet. The key was cold and heavy in his hand. The lock clicked, a slow and deliberate sound. The air changed, a faint metallic chill, like the breath of something sleeping. The door swung open to a steep, winding staircase that led into darkness. Julian took the steps one at a time, his footsteps leaving shallow prints in the thin dust. Alara's sneakers squeaked softly behind him, a T the bottom of the stairs. They came to another door, plain, wooden, and unassuming. Julian knelt, brushed a layer of dust on the floor, and pressed his palm to a single knot in the wood. With a quiet mechanical sigh, a panel slid aside, revealing the formidable vault door. The steel was flawless, untouched by time and elements. He spun the combination lock, each turn a deliberate, practiced movement. The air on the other side was cool, still smelling faintly of cedar and immense wealth. Alara's eyes widened, a silent gasp. Julian rested a hand on a stack of gold bars. "This is why we don't panic," he said, his voice low and steady. "The world thinks we lost everything, but they never knew the whole game. This isn't just a place to store things. It's a place to begin again." He stood there for a long moment, letting the silence sink in. He wasn't ruined. He was free. The first few weeks were methodical. Julian kept the exterior Blackwood Ridge just as decrepit as it had been, the banging shutter and overgrown weeds a perfect disguise. But inside he repaired the old study, turning it into a sleek, modern office. The vault was a treasury feeding his vision. Each morning, after walking Alara to school, he would return and descend into the cold heart of the mansion, selecting a single, small envelope of cash or a small velvet box to fuel his next move without drawing attention. His first call was to an old friend, a man named Arturo, who ran a discreet pawn and precious metals exchange near the docks. A place with no receipts, just trust and a handshake. Arturo's eyes widened when the first diamond hit the table. "Julian, you've been holding out on me," he said with a low whistle. Julian just smiled faintly. "I've been patient." While Serafina paraded through galas in new gowns, her social media feed a constant stream of lavish parties and ostentatious displays, Julian was making small, silent, strategic moves. He bought a small, underperforming logistics company that was off the public radar. He acquired a sliver of stock in an energy firm whose CEO owed him a favor from years ago. He invested in a tech startup that was a whisper now, but would soon be a roar. Soon, whispers began to drift through the city's business lunches. "Serafina is running Orion Dynamics now," someone said in a coffee shop Julian overheard. She saw over her head. She doesn't know a ledger from a lunch menu. The gossip grew sharper, more detailed. Orion missed a quarterly filing. Vendors weren't getting paid. Serafina was seen leaving a meeting with a mortgage broker, a desperate look on her face. Julian heard it all without even trying. The world loved to watch a fall, especially when it came from such a great height. Inside the mansion, changes began to take place. Not to the exterior, not yet, but the interiors were transformed. A dusty drawing room became a minimalist office with a mahogany desk and 2 leather chairs. The vault became an extension of that office, a silent engine of wealth. Every night, Julian would stand by the repaired second-story window, watching the distant city lights, feeling the slow, delicious weight of preparation. Be why the 3rd month. The vault was perhaps 2% lighter, but the investment in fuel were already growing roots, beginning to multiply. Accounts in his name began to fill, not from anything Serafina could seize, but from ventures she couldn't even comprehend. And then one morning, as Julian reviewed a set of contracts in the renovated study, his phone buzzed with a message from Arturo. "She's in trouble. Your ex real trouble." Julian leaned back in his leather chair, a slow, calculated smile spreading across his face. It wasn't time to strike yet. It wasn't time to gloat. But the foundation had been laid. The world thought he was ruined. Serafina believed she had stripped him down to nothing, but he was stronger than ever. The game was only just beginning.